Welcome to Pivotal. This is the podcast where I talk to business owners about the many twists and turns that got them here. You know, Steve Jobs said it best that you can only connect the dots by looking backwards. And it's in looking back at the painful moments, the uncertain moments, the make it or break it moments in business that you realize just how pivotal those moments were to your current success. So my guest today is JDavis McLeod. He's the co-owner and founder of the award-winning painting company, JDavis Painting. In 2019, Jeff quit his corporate job to launch JDavis Painting, perfectly timed in February of 2020, just in time to be punched in the gut by COVID lockdowns. But because of their non-traditional approach to trades, JDavis Painting is now thriving today. So please welcome to the stage, Jeff Davis. Or JDavis. I always mess up your name, Jeff McLeod, JDavis. So let's maybe just start. I know I'm already going out of order. Who is JDavis? If you're Jeff McLeod, who is JDavis?
Actually, I'm JDavis. My middle name is Davis. It's Jeff Davis McLeod.
Okay, so then why what's the story behind that name?
So when we were selecting the brand for the company, we put a lot of thought into sort of who we wanted to be as a company and how we wanted to be represented. Mm-hmm. And I did want to use my name. But I kind of thought two things. Number one, when we started to work on the branding, like McLeod Painting, like it didn't look right. It didn't sound good, to be honest. Like it just didn't flow properly. And some of my good friends call me JDavis just as a nickname. And it just like flowed nicely. JDavis Painting. There's something about the consonants in the middle of both of those words. And then in the logo, the J lined up with the D, the A lined up with the V. Like it just, from a branding perspective, worked best. So
I think, and you've nailed kind of two key things that I always talk to people about naming their business. So sure, it's the visual of how it looks. Like for me, McEwen Media, I've always loved the double M's and then how the double M's work. M is a good letter. But I think also what I tweaked to was it's your nickname by friends. Yeah. And it has that gut feel, because when it's the name of your business, you know, you're going to have to say the name of that business multiple times a day. Yeah. And it is an extension of your identity.
Yeah. So we were happy to kind of settle on it. I did also think that it might be nice that if, you know, I want to be future thinking, that even though when we're starting, of course, you're small, you're nothing, you're just a person with an idea. But I did think, you know, down the road, we do want to be big. And it might be nice to have just like a little bit of like arm's length distance between who I am and who my business is. Yeah. If we do tend to grow this and think about opening other locations and licensing or franchising or something like that, I might not necessarily want my name like always front and center. It would be nice to have like just a little bit of space between it.
Yeah, I love that forward thinking. The forward thinking of it too, but still that you knew that it still needed to have some kind of connection to you. Because I think a lot of businesses, they borrow a page from like the startup space where it's like, well, you know, my business needs to you know, be something that someone's going to purchase at some point. And I always say, well, you have to think through too, like how long you're going to be in this business. Like at what point are you going to sell it? And can you be in relationship with the name of that business for the entire time? In the startup space, it's almost like house flipping for businesses. So they're not looking to have a long relationship or like a deep expression of who they are. And I think, you do need to think through these details. And it really, to me, it comes down to the gut feel. Does it feel right to say this business? Because you're going to have to, especially in the beginning when you're wearing all the hats, you're going to have to talk about this business and allow it to have a life in and of itself. In the intro, you say that JDavis Painting is thriving. So let's get specific. How is JDavis Painting thriving today?
Yeah, so every year since the year we started, we've seen significant growth. In the first 2 years, you know, we had our first year, which was big. We doubled, and then we grew by 50% the year after that. And we've continued to grow each year. But the last couple of years, we focused a lot on building strong foundations for our business. So getting the technology right, getting everything within our tech stack proper, getting the right vendors who are supporting us, building out the HR systems and the right teams within our group. And now we feel like we have this like really, you know, the steady foundation of the bottom of the pyramid is built very, very strong. And so we've got 3.5, almost 4 crews running at any given time. which would put us kind of the biggest of the small painting groups or medium-sized painting groups in Toronto. So in the painting world, there's like these small groups of like an owner plus one or two guys. And then there's companies like us that have an owner plus several team members and a few crews. And we would be one of the biggest in that group. And then there's like these huge companies that are 60, 70, 100 employees. And we're trying to figure out how to make that jump. We're kind of hitting our head on the ceiling for our size right now. And we're getting ready to make that big jump. And we think that we're well positioned for it. We've done a lot of this stuff. We've always acted like a big company, even though we're a small company.
Yeah.
And we think that's going to pay off, hopefully.
I feel like I could unpack that idea for like the next hour. So there are a couple of things. First, I really love your definition of thriving. Is it necessarily like passive income? You've built a funnel and now it's just, you're making 10K a day. Like,
that sounds nice though. I have to say, I wouldn't mind that either.
Yeah, I'm not going to turn down cash flow either. But your definition of thriving though is, well, we have the systems in place that make it possible for us to operate efficiently and deliver a quality product, which I think is so key to then move into the next level for you.
Yeah, for us, everything's relative. Like we try not to. It's easy to look at someone bigger or better and go, I wish I had that, or I wish I was that. Yeah. But we do try to do a good job of like keeping grounded in a span of 5 years. What have we been able to achieve, and are we on track for where we want to be 5 years from now? And I think we're really happy with where we are right now, and like in the position to have a lot of the things that we want within our business within the next year or two. And we've just tried to stay really incremental that way, just like making a lot of really sound decisions, a lot of good small decisions along the way, and just like try to avoid making bad decisions, just make the right next step, and be always start with the end in mind, like trying to work towards that long-term vision.
Which it sounds like it sounds like such a logical place to be, but I know from my experience too, it's one of the hardest mindsets, like to be grounded and happy with where you are today while still looking ahead at the future. So take me back then to 2019. Did you have all of this sound grounding approach to JDavis in the early days?
I wish I could say we did. That would feel really good. Yep. When we first started, in 2019, I had worked in a corporate job for the last 7 years in downtown Toronto, and it was a charity, and it was good work. I was doing good work for the greater good, but I wasn't getting paid much. Even though I was a high performer, I was frustrated that I was getting towards my mid 30s and going like, I should be hitting my high income earning years pretty soon here, but like I'm still like really nowhere near it. And I had dreams of being a homeowner in Toronto and having disposable income and things like that, which I didn't really have. I mean, it was great work. I was doing purposeful stuff, but the financial rewards weren't there. And so I decided to leave that charity and start pursuing stuff that would be better paying. And very quickly, like the jobs I was applying for, I was like, oh my God, like this is soul sucking work. I don't really want to do this. I don't want to really work for somebody else. I think I need to be my own boss. I had owned businesses in the past, and so I knew what it was like to be my own boss, and I wanted to pursue that again. So I made this pitch to my fiance and my then girlfriend, now fiance, in 2019. I was like, look, if we ever want to buy a home in Toronto, I think that we're going to have to own our own business. Like, that's how we'll have to do it. And I had this painting experience in the past. I had a student painting franchise when I was in university for 3 years, and it's one of the biggest student painting franchises in Canada, 300 or 400 franchisees across the country. And every year I was in the top 1 or 2% for 3 years. And then I had also worked as district manager for them. So I had Saskatchewan and Manitoba as my territory. And in the time that I was there, I recruited and trained, 40 or 45 franchisees. From I know nothing about painting or running a business up to I'm running a successful, profitable painting company. And so I made my pitch to Kirsten. It's like, I think we got to run a business. This is the only business I know how, but don't worry. I've had my own painting company. I've helped other people start painting companies. There is not a thing that could happen in the first 18 months of running a painting company that I haven't seen before. I've been through it all.
Yeah.
And then, so we launched the company in February 2020. And of course, about 3 or 4 weeks after that, something happened that
Yeah.
none of us had ever seen before. And that
Yeah.
was, of course, COVID set in. So
Yeah. There are
that
a
was,
couple things that I love I love this theme of thriving, because at different points of your story, the way that you define thriving is different. Like when you're working for a corporate, when you're working for someone else, you're limited to their expectations. You're limited to what they're willing to pay you.
hmm,
The idea of thriving isn't necessary. I mean, yes, passive income, cash flow, money, it's disposable income, all of that stuff is good. But for you, again, it was just like the flexibility, just the ability to call my own shots and to kind of set my own pace of how much money I can make. There
yeah.
is that is, I think, the promise of entrepreneurship, right? You build your own business, you are your own boss. There's now no limit to how much you can earn. That is the dream. The reality, though, is also where you currently are, right? Which is, it's, you do have to work towards systems. You do have to think through even just something as simple as what to name your business, run
Yeah.
through all of these different scenarios. In the beginning, let's go back then to, because I think there's something also beautiful about, I think a lot of people, when they go into business for themselves, they think, well, I need to have a passion, right? The passion is what needs to drive me. For you, it's like, I've done this before. I've run a painting company before. So can you compare then what it was like then to run a painting company as a student versus now you're going to build on those skills to create something brand new for yourself?
That's a good question. When I ran my franchise, my student painting franchise with StudentWorks Painting, I had put a lot of faith in them that they tell you, we've got this great business system that we built for you. We're going to hand it over to you. Follow it like it's the Bible. Like
Yeah.
don't stray at all. Work harder than anyone you've ever met, and just never ever give up. And you're going to be super successful at this. And so I did
Mhm.
that, and it worked out well.
Mhm.
They provide a brand for you. They provide a business system for you. They do all the payroll. They provide a lot of stuff for you. Starting your own business, even though you know a lot of those things, like you don't really have a business till you've written them down or you're starting to use them.
Yeah.
So you have to create your own brand, and like creating a brand is hard. Creating a
Mhm.
brand is really, really hard. I mean, just take a look around. There's a lot of big brands that haven't got it right themselves.
Yeah. Yep.
And so trying to create something that's meaningful, that we believe in, that's also gonna resonate with homeowners was difficult to do. And there's, even with great guidance, it's tough to know
Yeah.
what the right move is.
Yeah.
So creating the brand, figuring out what the brand was going to be about, and creating the brand was tough. And then, of course, building every little system. People think you start a business and then you got clients and you're going, but like, just because
Yeah.
you say that you have a business doesn't mean anything. It means like, all right, all you've done is said I'm open for business, but like
Yeah.
nobody is likely going to hire you.
Yeah.
So you go out and you find every last lead. You got to go. For us, we started by literally knocking on doors, going
Mm.
through neighborhoods that we thought would have homeowners who would be willing to spend money on the maintenance, beautification of their home, and
Mhm.
knocking on their doors and saying, hey, we're a painting company. We're in the neighborhood. We'd love to do some work for you. Do you have any plans for interior, exterior painting this year? And starting from there. So
Mm.
going out to rally up every bit of interest, and then following up with them and doing quotes
Mhm.
and whatever. Um, at the beginning, it's tough running a business at the beginning because you're the only one in it, and you
Yeah.
are the little engine that could, and everything just runs on what you got. And
Mhm.
if you're not running, then the business isn't running. You are the business. And then
Mhm.
in many ways, as you get bigger, it starts to get a little bit easier as you begin to get some people that you can rely on and delegate
Mhm.
things to, or they can be proactive to take things on. It's a
Mhm.
tough lesson to learn, because at the beginning, everything is about how hard can you work, how efficient can you be. And then
Mhm.
later, as you get good at working hard and being efficient and
Yeah.
making good decisions, then the game
Yeah.
changes. It's no longer about this anymore. Now it's actually about the opposite. How much can you give away? How much can you lead? How
Yeah.
much can you develop leaders? How much
Yeah.
can you delegate? So it's been, of course, like an interesting journey. And it's a lot more difficult to not have a backing, to not have somebody to turn to ask questions to.
Mhm.
When I was doing the student franchise thing, there's always somebody I could call. There's always a system
Mhm.
I can rely on.
Mhm. Mhm.
But now I build something and then sometimes I discover, the thing I built isn't great. We got to change that. My system
Yeah.
actually is good. Um, yeah.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. I actually do love the scene that you're painting of these early years. Yeah, it is hard work and there's a lot of uncertainty. And I think a lot of business owners, especially in the beginning, they want to bypass that or they want to skip through it as quickly as humanly possible. I learned from my experience too. No, you actually want to be in the discomfort for a little bit because that's where you learn what this business actually is. There's
Yeah.
as long as it's an idea, it's pure, it's perfect because it hasn't been tested. You need to test it. And when you're building something from scratch, you need to experience what isn't working so you can find out what actually is. So
Yeah.
what were some of let's talk about some of the early boondoggles. What were some of the most painful lessons you learned in the beginning?
So we started knocking on doors in mid-February. It was dark, 5 o'clock in the evening,
February 2020. Let's
2020.
never forget the year. Yeah.
It's snowy. At that time, like not a lot of people were working from home, right?
Yeah.
So you had to wait until people were home from work so that you could knock on their door, but you kind of wanted to get in that sweet spot before they were having dinner or like putting their kids down. So I'm out knocking on doors and drumming up interest. And we had a lot of moms like, do you know what time it is? I can't believe you're knocking on my door at this hour. And I'm like, it's 6:45. Like, yeah, well, I was putting the kid down or
Yeah.
something.
Yeah. Mom
Like,
time is
oh my
different.
goodness. Okay, yeah, I'm really sorry that I interrupted you. And like, yeah, that probably shouldn't do that. So that was our primary form of generating leads right at the
Yeah.
start. And so we started booking jobs around the beginning of March. That's when jobs started to book. We booked
Mhm.
about $30,000 or $40,000 worth of work. So that's roughly a month or a month and a half worth of work for one crew of painters. Of two
Yeah.
painters. So I was like, all right, we got a business now. Like I got clients, jobs are booked, like we're ready to go. Most of them were exterior, but we were getting some interiors coming in. And then
Mm.
like second week of March, maybe third week of March, then the new notice came: stay home,
Yeah.
don't do anything, flatten the curve, don't leave your home. And so we just had to like stop. So as it turns out, that was a bit of a benefit for us because I spent 2 months just like building systems in my business, just like
Okay.
creating systems and like figuring out what our checklists were going to be and figuring out what conversations, building scripts, like all that stuff. And then I just drew. And then when May rolled around, I just drew a circle on a date. I was like, you know what? Come hell or high water, May 20th, we're going to start painting outdoors.
Okay.
Right? That's it.
Yeah.
And so I hired a guy, the first guy I ever hired. He was a CFL player,
Okay.
and the CFL was closed. His dad
Yep.
had been a painter, and his grandfather had been a painter, and he was like 6'6" or something. And so we did the interview over Skype or Zoom,
Mhm.
and like it looked good. Uh, and then on the morning that we were supposed to start, the night before we were supposed to start, first two things happened. One is I was like, man, I can't get a hold of this guy. I sure hope he shows up tomorrow. Like, I don't know what's going on. And then I was like, and he's like 6'5" or 6'6". I should probably check the weight rating on our ladders. Cause if he's a
Right.
CFL player, like he could be pretty heavy. And
Yep.
so I looked him up and he like walks around at like 260 or 280. And I was like, oh my God, if it's the off season, he might be 300 or 320. And the rating that I had on the ladder at the time was like 250. So I had to like go and like return it and get a new one at a time when we didn't have any money coming in. And then later on that day, I was like, man, I can't get a hold of this guy. I can't get a hold of this guy. And I just decided, I'll bet you he's just going to ghost me. He's not going to show up. And I was right.
Mm.
He disappeared. So I ended up having to call candidate number 2, which was a young guy out of Vietnam who didn't really speak much English. I was like, whatever. We are starting tomorrow. I said, we're starting tomorrow. We're doing it. And
Yeah.
so at the beginning is just like holding on for dear life to get things going, but having the sheer determination to like, no matter what, like we are
Yeah.
painting tomorrow. I don't care what happens. Like this thing's happening. This
Yeah.
thing's going. And that was how it started at the beginning. It was just like every day a new fire that had to be put
Mhm.
out. And
Mhm.
then eventually you put out enough of them that you start to build some traction and build some
Mhm.
momentum, start
Mhm.
to feel like things are kind of going your way a little bit.
Yeah. So what did it feel like for you to be in that moment? Like, first of all, there's the lockdown. Like, a good on you for then using that time to be like, okay, well, you know what? I'm gonna create some systems. systems for what? Like, you have no idea what, there are certain things that you don't know what you're dealing with until you start doing the work, like figuring out, oh, what is the weight limit of this person that I've just hired? And what equipment do I have? So how did you navigate, like, what's it like, let's get really, let's nerd out. What
Yeah.
systems did you create in the beginning when you had no idea what this thing actually was?
Yeah, so I would go through kind of what the flow of what a job was going to be. So the first thing is that conversation that you have at the door if you're knocking on doors, and what's the script for
Okay.
that? And I had an idea of what it was in my mind, but I was like, you know what? Let's write it down. So I wrote
Yeah.
down the script. Okay, now I've got an actual script that we can work from. Then you do a follow-up call with that person. What are the key points that need to be in that script? Then eventually you're going to do the estimate. All right, now we have to get the software that figures out how we estimate things. And how are we going to do that? When I had run the student painting franchise, 10, 15 years earlier, we did it all on paper. We had a little grid that we printed off, and we calculated numbers and wrote them down and multiplied them by hand. I was like, no, I got to get a software for this, because there's no way I'm going to be writing stuff in triplicate. we were literally using like carbon copy paper and like tearing it off. Here's your copy of the quote. So building out what our standards were going to be for an easy baseboard, a medium baseboard, a hard baseboard, an easy wall, a hard wall, interior, exterior, prep, all these things. And then leading up to the job, what's the checklist that needs to be reviewed with the client? So this is what you need to do with your furniture. This is what you need to do with things that you have hanging on your wall. We're going to need access to a washroom. We're going to need access to a laundry basin, or somewhere we can wash our brushes. This is when we're going to arrive each day. Is when we're going to leave each day. Like all the tiny bits of information that needs to be communicated. And then when we get to the job, what's the checklist for what needs to happen in that initial walkthrough? We're reviewing everything that's going to be done and doing all the housekeeping items with the client. How do we wrap up a job? What exactly are the tools that we need to have on a job, the equipment? How do we know that for each job also? Like, how do we know whether we need a big ladder, a small ladder, or whatever for each job, or this type of primer, or that type of primer? So building out every last little checklist and system and whatever to make it dead simple. And I was a big follower of a book called The E-Myth, which is short for the entrepreneurial myth, which is that people think that if you start a business, then things will be easy, but actually starting a business is really, really hard. So the premise of the book is that you should, whatever business you start, or whatever business you own or run, you should run it like a franchise. You should run it like you're going to sell it to somebody, and that the secret sauce is not you. The secret sauce is the system. So that if somebody else has to do that intake call, or somebody else has to do the walkthrough at the job site, or somebody else has to do the final walkthrough and collect the check, you could theoretically say, here's the checklist. Let's go over it. I'm going to teach you how to do this. And it only takes a half hour, an hour to train somebody on it. And then they're able to do it forever.
That is such a core valuable lesson to figure out in the beginning. What you're describing is what I also guide clients through with their brand story and their marketing is think of the ideal client relationship from start to finish. What is it like to be working with you? And what is it like to be in your presence? So thinking through what is the optimal experience that I can give for someone else, mapping that out. And then at the same time, how can I deliver this as efficiently as possible?
The way we phrase that is we want an outcome that's both predictable and replicatable, right?
Yeah.
So that's the system that we're trying to build, is one that we know exactly what the experience is going to be like for the customer, no matter which crew we have on the job.
Yeah. Yeah. And especially, I think because of the nature of what you do, like I was thinking of this the other day, painting, out of all the home projects in the world that you can do, painting your room is the easiest one you can do yourself. So then to convince someone to hire you and your crew and to pay money to have it done, it isn't just the paint on the walls, it's the full experience.
Yeah.
As a client, I don't have to worry about anything. You've done all the worrying.
Yeah, that's exactly right. That is exactly right. We want people to feel like they're in the hands of experts.
What's your tagline? You're a 5-star company in a 2-star industry?
That's right. JDavis Painting, 5-star company in a 2-star industry.
Where did that come from? I know I want to get into your marketing brain too. Where did that tagline come from?
I heard a guy from Alabama say it once, actually. He was a business coach, and he was talking about the trades and how
Mm.
so many trades just have such a bad reputation. They're smoking cigarettes in the front yard and throwing their butts out in the garden. They're leaving their shoes on. Wife asks a question, turns to the husband and answers the question. Stuff like this, just like
Mm.
kind of pissing people off who are
Yeah.
paying the money like all the time. Never tell you when they're coming back, give you
Yeah.
a timeline, never hit it,
Yeah.
cost jumping all the time. Like any one of these things would be like a disqualifying thing in most industries,
Mhm.
but for whatever reason in the trades, a lot of businesses get away with doing most or maybe all of these things on
Mhm.
most or maybe all of the projects that they work on.
Mhm.
And so I heard this guy talking about it, and I thought, you know what, that kind of perfectly encapsulates what we're trying to do here.
Yeah.
That is, we toyed around, and we still use some of these taglines. We toyed around with a few other ones. For medium and large size paint jobs that absolutely have to go right, call JDavis Painting.
Mhm.
Hire a painter that treats you right. Those were the ideas that we were kind of like toying with, and we heard the 5-star company, 2-star industry, and it made
Yeah.
me chuckle a bit. But it also, like, it hits it exactly the way that we want people to be thinking about
Yeah.
us. And I can proudly say that our work backs it up. Go look us up on
Yeah.
Homestars or on Google reviews. You'll see on Google, I think right now we got 94 reviews. 93 of them are 5-star and one of them is 4-star.
That's great. You need
So
the 4-star review to make sure that you're legit.
yeah,
No
I
one
was like, I'm not mad.
no one trusts
I
a
mean, you
perfect
read it and
record.
it's a really nice review as well, but it does give us a little bit of like,
Yeah.
you
Well,
know,
and you've also won multiple awards. Like, remember, your business has just turned 5. So you've got
yeah.
all these 5-star ratings, 1 4-star rating, and then a bunch of awards. So we nerded out, or I nerded out a lot with the systems. I want to talk to you about standards, though, because the tagline 5-star business in a 2-star industry. This is you as a business owner looking around at the competition and saying, we can do better. This is why I was put on. This is why this idea has come to me. So what are some of the core standards that you have today? And if you can tie them to, the origin story of the beginning of JDavis Painting, even if it's like from the space in between, because like you had a painting company as a student, then a lot of jobs in between. And so where did these standards come from? Let's look back and connect some dots.
Well, it is kind of funny, you go places in your career and it's kind of all over the place, and you end up where you end up. And for me, that's with this business. And I can definitely say that, I took a little bit from this experience, a little bit from that experience. I learned this from
Mhm.
there, and all these little things help you become who you are. So I had this painting franchise experience. I also played varsity basketball,
Hmm.
and so like high level competitive sports was really important to me a lot growing up. And I often played a leadership role where I was like helping to promote others on my team. I was a point guard in basketball, and I always saw my success was when I made the people around me better. And I've always
Mm.
like viewed that in business as well. And then I had the painting franchise. I worked as a district manager for them. That company, Student Works Painting, had what they call the 4 referability habits: be on time, finish what you start, do what you say please and thank you. Okay.
Mm.
Do those 4 things. None of those are particularly related to painting, but you do those 4 things, and you're bound to run a good business in whatever industry you're in,
Absolutely.
especially one that is relationship based, that's
Yeah.
relationship focused.
Mhm.
So we carry that forward. I got into marketing. I had a marketing company when I was kind of having my digital nomad life. I started a marketing company with a friend. I was traveling and working from my laptop, and for 2 years didn't have an address and was just kind of road tripping around the United States and Canada. I visited 40 states and 9 provinces, and just would pull over and stop at the cafe and work, and learned a lot about marketing in that time, and
Mhm.
about how to properly message something and figure out who your target market is and figure out what their needs and their wants are, and then cater to that. And that's kind of how we got to where we were with the brand originally. The first iteration was JDavis Painting. The idea was that hiring a trade doesn't have to be a nightmare. It can be a fun
Yeah.
and exciting experience.
Yeah.
Okay. That was our original sort of kernel of how it could work. And I learned that from the marketing experience that I had. I lived abroad for a period of time and was an international tour guide. I take high school and university students abroad to work on volunteer projects, and like the most marginalized areas of the world. So this is Ghana and Kenya and India and China, Ecuador, Nicaragua, the Dominican, all over the world.
Mm-hmm.
And we're building schools and water projects and clinics and things like that. And so I learned a lot about like leadership and serving at that point, developing leaders around us, and yeah, just like trying to be just in everything that we do, and learning about other people's perspectives. Like, it's so easy to get set in your own mindset, in your own ways, and think that just because somebody thinks something different than you, that thing is wrong.
Yeah.
So you have to be open.
Yeah.
And then when I came back and worked for that same company at their corporate head office, it was a really high performing company with like really high performing founders, and we had core values that the company was based off of, and we were working under a strong purpose, and that taught me about building values within our company as well. So it was probably in our second year we developed core values as a company, and there's something that helped guide us now. And every year we do like a painter appreciation barbecue, and the staff gets to vote on like who most represents each value, and they win a little award with a golden paintbrush.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, like there's the marketing, and I love how the marketing, it's messaging, but it's also relationships. Like, that was what I was hearing in terms of how you approach everything, really. Like, you're very purpose driven, and also like doing a bunch of things. So how do you make decisions? How would you describe your decision making style?
So my partner Kirsten and I, we run this business together.
Okay.
And we have opposite decision-making styles, actually.
Okay.
So I am biased towards action. I think make a decision quick and go. Yeah. Things don't have to be ready. Things don't even have to be right.
Yeah.
You just need to get going on them. And then you will learn very quickly where the problems are and what needs to be improved and what needs to be fixed. Kirst, so that's probably the more like visionary founder side of me. That's the entrepreneur side of me. Kirst is very methodical. Yeah. She likes to think through a problem deeply and come up with all the solutions and figure out which one's best and implement that solution before we take it to market. And as a result, of course, this is frustrating for her sometimes when I push us into action before we're ready for things. And it's frustrating for me sometimes when I want to get going, but I got to wait for her to test things out. But the result is we end up with really good outcomes. We find a balance where I got to admit, it takes her longer to make decisions, but they are high quality decisions. They're really, really good. The quality of the work is fantastic.
How did you, because I mean, the stakes are high in this relationship. Like, it's your business relationship, but then also like your partner in life. So how do you, like, walk me through then how you two have gotten to this place of mutual respect and recognizing that both energies working together are where you, because you didn't, I don't think that you started out that level of understanding is what I'm trying to say. Let's not gloss over the ugliness. Yeah.
Well, so when I started the business, Kirsten actually had a job working at Girl Guides of Canada, and she was doing travel and events for them. And when the pandemic hit, of course, no more travel, no more events. That was the end of that. So her job originally was laid off, and then just got dissolved. And so then she was helping out a little bit, helping with some bookkeeping staff or maybe some admin stuff. And then when it was clear that her job wasn't coming back, okay, now she's like taking on like a little bit more and a little bit more and a little bit more. And it wasn't until probably about 2 years ago that like we was really settled. Okay, this is like your full-time job now. And it took us a lot of jostling, a lot of frustration, a lot of like regular relationship tension, or maybe heightened relationship tension, because it's a lot more difficult when you're running a business together as well. But we did eventually get to a point where, once we started to get really clear about what the roles and responsibilities were for each person, then it started to get a little bit easier. And also, once it was less about like, oh, can you take on this? Can you take on that? And more about like, well, what do you want? What are the tasks that you want to hold and you enjoy, you get energy out of doing? Then it became a little bit easier. And as the company grows and you can start saying like, all right, let's hire an administrator and get rid of the stuff I don't like. Then it was definitely easier on our relationship.
Okay. I think definitely one thing that also probably helped your business and your relationship was when you brought Kirsten in, because I think when you're in the beginning phases, like we addressed it earlier, you do just need to take action on stuff. You don't know what it is until it's actually in the world. So I think in the first couple of years, you did need to be Action Jackson. Like that's exactly how I approached my business too. It's just like, I have an idea, let's go do it. I have an idea, let's go do it. And then just if something doesn't land, then okay, let's do something else. You do need to have that period of trial and error. When you're beginning to, you don't have the brand weight, like the stakes aren't high enough. You can make mistakes, fail often and fail frequently. But I think, if you're not learning from these mistakes, then you're not also building the awareness so that when someone does come in to slow you down and help you triage your ideas, you need to kind of go through that messy beginning phase in order to appreciate what they're now able to do for you and your ideas. Even, a very thorough and methodical pre-action decision-making phase isn't always a guarantee. So then how do the two of you navigate, when you do launch something and it doesn't quite work out, how do you navigate failure, I should say, at this point?
Well, there's certainly like plenty of that to go around when you're running your own business, depending on how you like to look at things. I think that for us, like a big important part of how we remain successful is actually reminding ourselves that our relationship is the most important thing.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like the business is important, but like our relationship is what we're really in it for.
Yeah.
And so sometimes that happens where we'll have heated moments. And it's like, look, let's get grounded again. What's important here is our relationship. It's you and me. That's what's important. And the business is going to have to take a bit of a backseat to that.
Mm-hmm. That's a beautiful and I'm sure Kirsten's going to be watching this as well. A beautiful answer. So, but when things do kind of go sideways, how do you navigate? How do you move forward?
Well, it helps when you know exactly who's responsible for what.
Yeah.
Right. Because if you have a disagreement about how something should be done, if it's in my portfolio, I can ultimately say, look, thanks for your input, but like, I'm the one who's doing this. We're going to go my way on this. And she has the power to do that as well. Right. Mm-hmm. That like, I'm going to put my input in and I'm really hoping she's going to consider it. But if it's her portfolio, ultimately she gets to make that decision.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I guess that's the part of it related to conflicts. When it comes to like actual failures, I think I'm probably harder on myself and harder on the business for what I'd consider to be a failure than maybe what I need to be. And that probably comes from competitive sports. But like, if we fall short, 2 years ago, we fell short of our goal by about 0.5% of what our goal was. And I was so mad. I couldn't believe, like, oh my God, we got to 99.5% of what our goal is. I was so mad.
Just round
furious.
up.
Oh my God.
But I think what we're kind of exploring now here too is a huge minefield for business owners, because things don't go the way that you planned. They don't always go the way that you expected, but it's how you react to those situations will either weigh you down or propel you forward. So and that's definitely, I think that's in terms of sports. So I remember back to when I first ran a marathon. So I had an entire year training for this, years actually, because it started with the 10K, then the half marathon, then the full marathon. And I, to this day, still can't just enjoy the fact that I accomplished that, because I was like almost an hour slower than I expected to be. I fell short of my expectation. Like no one else I can't just be happy that I completed it.
Yeah.
But that's definitely an awareness. If you're building a business is a marathon, not a sprint. And I think too, when you're a small business owner, you do need to take in a lot of information, and you do need to take in, perspectives and learnings from other people. But at the end of the day, the buck stops with you, right? You are JDavis. It is your business. Yeah. You're the one shouldering it. So you do need to also have that discipline of, thank you for your input, but this is the decision I'm going with right now. Yeah. It's a hard burden to carry. And I think this is where like larger business and corporations benefit from having like very complicated systems. to allow for a lot of people, a lot of voices to be heard at the table. But when you're a little guy, it's just me.
It's just me.
It's
I think
just me.
probably the biggest pressure that I feel within our business is, we've got, including Kirsten and I are on the payroll, including us, we got 10 employees right now. During our busy times of the year, that could grow up to 15 or 18 people.
Yeah.
And the biggest pressure I have is the pressure to like keep everybody working.
Yeah.
Right now I'm responsible for all the sales. And it is a big pressure to be out there and like, hey, I gotta bring the business in to make sure that everybody's got work tomorrow.
Yeah. How do you compartmentalize that pressure? Because that's a lot.
I wish I did, Tara.
Yeah.
I wish I did. I wish I did compartmentalize it a little bit better.
It's tough. Yeah.
I mean, I've come to like accept some things, like when we have a quiet time of year, to just say like, look, this is just the industry. If people are working in this industry, their expectation has to be realistic, that it's not just our company that's not working right now.
Yeah.
Everyone else is laying off employees. Like that's just the nature of a seasonal industry, seasonal business.
Mm-hmm.
So that's helped a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't really have a good answer for that. I still feel a lot of pressure for it. And I think that it'll probably always be that way, because we purposely built a business filled with people that we like. That was one of the things that we talked about at the beginning, is like, we're not going to have, can I swear on this podcast? We're not going to have any assholes. We're not going to have any assholes working for us. Okay. Like that's the deal. I don't care how good you are at your job. If you're an asshole, like, you can't work here. And so we, right off the bat, we made a decision that like we were always going to have people working here that we enjoyed. And part of, and that's good, because it makes work fun. It makes work enjoyable. It makes you want to go and see the crew and have them do events with them and things like that. But also it gives me a much stronger sense of responsibility for them, because I care about them a heck of a lot. It really matters to me if I have a painter who, if it's a quiet time of year and we laid them off for a week or something like that. It's in the back of my mind burning. Oh my God, I got this person who doesn't have a paycheck this week. And
I mean, I wish that I'm related to this so hard, because I've also had to manage and shoulder this responsibility. Like I've hired people, but I've also had to fire them. Like I've also had to let people go, just because there isn't enough work for all of us. So the way that I've been able to be in that space is just knowing that it's gig work, right? Hiring people for however long there is a project to work on. But then knowing that when they are working with me, that it is such an enriching and inspiring experience, that they're actually better qualified and more confident to go on to their next project. And also just building out my referral network, where it's like, well, if I don't have the business coming in, but I know other people who are in this space, I can refer photographers, videographers, social media people. I can refer them to someone else. So that's kind of been, I just accepted that, when I hire people, it is temporary, because at the same time, when you are the salesperson, if you're desperate, if you're clingy, people will smell that a mile away. So it is about like knowing that it is for the greater good. I'm responsible. I'm responsible to, and I'm not responsible for the people that I hire when I do hire them. And I think the advantage too of working in media, we know that these jobs, it's gig to gig. So anyone who I do hire to work on a project, they know they've got other things on the go. So that's kind of how I've owned that, because it is hard to, especially, you like the people that you hire. It is really hard to say like, hey, I can't afford to pay you right now. But I think too that this is, coming back to like your next phase of the business is being a much larger scale painting company. These are some kind of, mindset and standards that you need to get comfortable with at this phase of your business, because, a larger company, sure, it's more money. It's also more problems, larger scale pressure. So how do you manage that, and like appreciating where you are now, looking ahead to the future? How do you still keep hopeful for the future growth of JDavis Painting?
Well, I've got a lot of faith in our ability to grow a business and do it in a way that is fun for us, but also good for our employees.
Mhm.
I've got a lot of faith that we're in an industry that, as much as tariffs or other crazy things in the economy could impact us, look around. Every man-made structure you've ever seen has a coating on it. Okay,
Yeah.
of something, of stain, of varnish, of paint, of something. So there's always going to be work out there for us, and we're not likely to be in an industry that AI is going to replace.
No.
Right. So I know that there's a big market for us out there, and I know from my time in this industry that people value the type of quality and service that we're doing, and
Mhm.
so I have very, very strong belief about what our future is going to look like and how we're going to grow, and that the next steps of it is going to be finding really, really incredible people to take on bigger amounts of responsibility within our company, who want to be
Mhm.
a part of a family grown business, family style business that's in high growth, in a traditional business, not the types of businesses that people have heard about and known about for years,
Yeah.
but doing things just a little bit differently. And
Yeah.
so I think that as we grow, there's a few things that I know that my skill set sits within, and one of them is that, like, get up and go stuff that
Mhm.
was really the piss and vinegar that the business was
Yeah.
built on. That's something that I know that I've got, but like that's becoming less and less important as we
Yeah.
grow. The other one that I know that I can leverage greatly is my sales experience, and
Mhm.
my sales acumen, and that also is going to become less important. And the third one is the one that I haven't tapped into the most, and might be, I think, my best skill set, and the one that I'm most passionate about, which is developing leaders.
Yeah.
I was a basketball coach in my younger years. I worked on these volunteer trips, developing leaders. I've managed sales teams. Like, there's a lot of different things I've done in my past life, developing leadership within the franchisees that I worked with, that we've only used a little bit in this business. And for our business to take the next step, that's going to be probably the primary skill
Mhm.
that I'm going to have to utilize.
What I love so much about talking to you about your business and entrepreneurship is every answer comes down to who you are. You have such a strong sense of who you are and how you show up in the world, in your business, with your relationships, with the future of your business. Like, it's just, if you look back, there's been very little strategy talk. I think the most strategy we talked about was like, how did you name your business? So much of it is who you are, because you are your business, you are you 24/7, and you are your business 24/7. It has to feel right and aligned and authentic for you to then continue on this marathon of building this business and seeing its future possibilities. So I can talk to you about business I know the first time we met, I'm like, you need to be like a business coach or like an entrepreneur coach. People need to, because I think there's so much information out there about like strategy, and if you're not scaling, you're failing. There is something to just, when it's hard, don't rush through that, because the business is growing in those hard spaces. The foundation you're going to build on is happening in these challenging and difficult moments. Like, don't rush through it. You need to be in it in order for it to become something.
I feel pretty lucky that the most of the work that I get to do, or have to do, or however you want to look at it, is work that is just me. It's just me in
Yeah.
my natural setting. And like, I probably, that's happened because I've been able to develop the business, because Kirsten and I were able to develop the business around ourselves and our personalities. So most of the work that we're doing is just work that like fits in with what our natural abilities and tendencies are.
Mhm.
And as we grow as a business, I think the key for us will always be to understand, like, where are the things that we have natural skill sets in, and to just keep feeding that, right? It's like,
Yeah.
you don't need to, there are certain things in your life where you need to make your weaknesses stronger.
Mhm.
But as your business grows, sometimes you got to focus on it. Sometimes you just got to focus on, put yourself in a position where the best version of you is shining the brightest, and then
Yeah.
find somebody else to who's really great and loves doing this thing that you're not good at. Put them in that position so they can shine brightly in it
Yeah.
as well. And so
Yeah.
that's our, as far as that's not the only strategy you have. We also have strategy backing our business. I just want to point out that we're not all just like
I'm well aware. Yeah, you're not winging it. This is an improv theater. I'm well aware you have a business, but you're one of the rare entrepreneurs who actually like have a business degree. So I'm well aware that you have some strategy. But in terms of like how you carry the story and what you bring to the surface, so much of it is like who you are and how you show up. There was a business coach that I worked with especially when I was figuring out like where to direct my energy. There's an exercise that she gave me, which was cringe, cake, or cake, cringe, and neutral. So list all the things that you have to do with your business and identify what stuff is cake, what is the stuff that you love to do and that you find easy, what is neutral, and then what is cringe. The cringe is what you you give to other people. You offset it, you automate it, you give it to someone else. And then for me, it's just like the cake is what I spend the most of my time with. And the neutral stuff, if I have the bandwidth to get better at it so that there's more cake, then I will. But I spend very little time focusing on what I don't do well.
So the evaluation that we do for that is listing out the tasks that we do and then ranking them on 3 scales. I like it, I'm good at it, and it's valuable. So that we want to know, like, is this, because sometimes there's a task that you can be very good at, but you hate doing it. Right? You dread it. You're like, I have to do it again because I'm the one who's good at it, but this is such a crummy task. But you might do it if it was a super valuable task. Yeah, I don't really like doing it, but I'm good at it, and we make a lot of money every time I do this thing. Yeah. So the ideal position is to find something that you can be excellent at, be very, very good at, that you like doing, and that it earns a lot of money.
Yeah.
Right? And finding
I like it. I'm good at it. It's valuable. I like that. Okay. Yeah. So if someone is watching this and they want to go, they're done, they're sick of the corporate grind, they have an idea, how do they move into action? How do they JDavis their business?
I think there's probably 2 or 3 really key steps to that. I think the first one is a lot of people will tell you this, but I do really think it's important, is that you really have to put a lot of thought into your brand. You got to think about like who you are and what you're trying to represent. And like at the beginning, it's not fun to do that because you don't know. You don't know the answers to some of those things. You're like, well, I kind of know who my target market is, but like, I won't know until I get in there and do it a little bit more. And I kind of know like why people are going to hire us, but I don't really know until some people have actually hired us. So you got to do like a lot of hard thinking on that and creating a brand that like truly resonates with who you are and what you're trying to do. I think that that's actually very, very, very important because you only get one chance to make a first impression on that. And you don't want to kind of launch a business, test a bunch of stuff out, realize that half of what you thought was horrible or whatever, and then do another big launch of like a slightly adjacent business. I think that you're going to, I don't think that's good. And then the other thing is, and comes from my own beliefs, is like a bias towards action. I think that taking any step forward, no matter how small it is progress. Yeah. And a lot of people wait for everything to be perfect before they start anything. And if you wait for that, you're never going to take the first step. That there's, to your point, Tara, there's a lot of value in learning and trying things out. You should be meeting lots of people. So you have to pitch your business over and over and over again. So you'll learn how to talk about your business. So you learn how to answer questions when people say, painter, like paintings? You're like, no. Like we paint houses, or, like, you got to learn how to answer these questions that people are going to have. So I would start with those 2 things. For us, it was, when it came to branding, we're like, all we need is a business card and a website. If we have those 2 things, we can start knocking on doors or meeting people or going to networking events or whatever. And once we had those 2 things in place, then it was just go.
Yeah. I mean, we could have a whole other hour on direct marketing and how being the human in selling your business is the most effective thing. But I feel like, I've exhausted your time. I'm sure you have a very important standard or a system to go in and develop. So thank you so much, Jeff. I learned so much talking to you. I love your story. I love your approach to business too. Like it's hard work, but you take the fear out of it. So thank you so much for being a 5-star guest on a 5-star podcast.
I love it. I appreciate you having me, Tara. This is a lot of fun.